He destroyed my career and lied to everyone. So I secretly recorded him and exposed the truth. He didn't plan to ruin his life. I didn't plan to destroy his career, and I definitely didn't plan for him to be dead 6 months later. But the moment I pressed stop recording, everything was already in motion, and there was no undo button. I work for a large global technology company, the kind of company that never sleeps. Our clients are spread across continents. Our systems run 24 hours a day, and when something breaks, millions of dollars can vanish in minutes. We were the people responsible for making sure that never happened. I joined the company 10 years ago, already experienced. I wasn't some clueless graduate fresh out of school. I had 7 years of real-world experience in software support. I knew how systems worked. I knew how to troubleshoot. I knew how to survive in environments where one mistake could cost you everything. Still, joining a new company is like moving to a new planet. New tools, new systems, new personalities, new politics. Our team had about 30 members, scattered across different countries. Most of us worked remotely, voices without faces, names without handshakes, and almost everyone was welcoming. Almost everyone, except Shane. Shane was different. He had been with the company for nearly 40 years. 40, that's longer than I had been alive. People didn't just respect Shane, they revered him. They talked about him like he was part of the infrastructure itself. Like the building would collapse if he ever left. If you had a problem nobody could solve, you went to Shane. If Shane didn't know the answer, people assumed there wasn't one. He was the guru, the legend, the untouchable. At first, I admired him. He was knowledgeable, sharp, efficient. When I asked questions, he usually had answers. He spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen everything before. But there was something else, too. Something I couldn't quite define. A coldness. He never joked, never laughed, never asked about anyone else. Conversations with him were transactional, functional. You existed only in relation to problems. And once the problem was solved, so were you. Still, I didn't think much of it. This was tech. Social skills weren't exactly a job requirement. Over time, I built relationships with other members of the team. One of them, Mel, became my closest friend there. Mel was based in the United States, like Shane. She had similar experience, similar tenure, and unlike Shane, she was human. We talked about work, about life, about the strange reality of working with people you'd never actually met. One day, during a quiet moment between incidents, she mentioned something that stuck with me. She had met Shane once. In person. At a tech conference in New York. She told me he was enormous, nearly 450 pounds. He struggled to walk. He relied on oxygen support at home. His health was fragile. He's just trying to make it to retirement, she said. That made sense. Healthcare in the US is expensive. Retirement benefits could mean survival. I didn't judge him for that. If anything, it made me respect him more. He was fighting his own battle, or so I thought, because 2 years later, everything changed. The company began shifting direction. New software, new infrastructure, new systems. It was the kind of transition that reshuffles everything. Old expertise becomes obsolete. New expertise becomes valuable. For the first time since I joined, everyone was equal again. Nobody had experience with the new system. Nobody was the expert. Nobody, except the people willing to learn. Threw myself into it completely. Late nights, extra training, documentation, testing environments, failure after failure until I understood every piece of it. IT wasn't about competition. IT was about survival. In tech, if you stop learning, you stop existing. And slowly, people started coming to me, me. They asked questions, requested help, trusted my answers. Without realizing it, I was becoming what Shane had always been, the go-to person. And that's when he started to hate me. At first, it was subtle, little comments during meetings. Oh, look who finally decided to join us. Even if I was only 30 seconds late. Emails questioning my decisions. Public corrections over minor Things that didn't matter, he never attacked directly. He attacked professionally. In ways that couldn't be proven malicious, but everyone could feel it. The hostility, the resentment, the quiet war. Elle noticed it too. She called me one afternoon. "What did you do to him?" she asked. "Nothing," I said honestly, and I meant it. I had never disrespected him, never challenged him, never undermined him, had simply learned. And apparently, that was enough. For 2 years, it continued like this. 2 years of quiet sabotage. 2 years of watching him try to chip away at my credibility. 2 years of pretending everything was normal. Oh, the day everything exploded. It started like any other shift. Routine, predictable, safe. And then the alerts started firing. One system failure, then another, then another. Within minutes, the entire platform began collapsing. Customers couldn't access services. Transactions failed. Systems froze. Millions of dollars were on the line. Emergency calls were opened. Managers joined. Directors joined. Executives joined. Over 100 people flooded into the incident bridge, and then our manager assigned investigation teams, and for reasons I still don't understand, she paired me with Shane, just the two of us. Alone. In a private call, trying to stop a disaster. At the time, I thought the worst thing that could happen was system failure. I was wrong. The worst thing that could happen was Shane, and I had no idea he was about to destroy me. He stayed silent, then destroyed me in front of everyone. The private call connected with the soft chime. Just me and Shane. No managers. No executives. No witnesses. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear the faint hum of his microphone, the distant sound of oxygen flow in the background. His breathing was slow, heavy, mechanical. "We need to move fast," I said, keeping my voice professional. He didn't respond immediately. Finally, he muttered, "Yeah." His voice sounded different, flat, detached, like he was somewhere else. I pushed the thought aside and shared my screen. The system logs filled the display, thousands of lines of raw machine output. To most people, it would look like meaningless noise. To me, it was a crime scene. Every error message was a footprint. Every timestamp was a witness. "We're looking for anything unusual after the last patch deployment," I explained, more out of habit than necessity. He didn't say anything. I navigated deeper, directory after directory, log after log, error chains branching into other failures. The system was bleeding internally, and then I saw it. A pattern, a repeating exception tied to a specific module that had been updated hours earlier. There it was. The patch.it wasn't fully compatible with one of the core services. Under normal conditions, the flaw stayed dormant, but under heavy load, it triggered a cascade failure, like pulling the wrong brick from a wall. Everything above it collapsed. "I think I found it," I said. No response. I continued explaining anyway. "This patch here, it's causing a conflict. The service can't initialize properly, so it's retrying continuously. That's overloading the system." Still nothing. Glanced at his name in the call window. He was still there, still connected, still silent. I kept going, narrating every step, partly because it was professional courtesy, partly because I wanted him to understand, partly because, deep down, I still respected him. I opened the deployment history, pointed directly at the patch. "This is the source." I paused. Finally, he spoke. "So what's the fix?" It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't collaboration. It sounded like evaluation. "We need to roll it back," I said, "but we'll need management approval first." That was standard procedure. You don't just reverse production changes during a critical incident without authorization, even if you're right, even if you're certain, because if you're wrong, the consequences are worse. He didn't respond. So I kept digging, documenting everything, preparing the evidence we'd need to justify the rollback, and then he disconnected. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. His name vanished from the call. I frowned. Probably Skype glitching again. I muttered to myself. It happens sometimes. Connections dropped. People rejoined. And oh, big deal. I continued working, gathering logs, preparing notes, building the case. I wasn't worried. I had the answer. And soon, everyone would know it. A few minutes later, I rejoined the main incident bridge. Over 100 people were there. Managers, directors, senior leadership. Voices layered over voices. Urgent. Tense. The incident manager was coordinating everything. "What's the update?" she asked sharply. Before I could speak, Shane's voice cut in calm, confident, controlled. "The issue was caused by a deployment error earlier today." My stomach tightened. Deployment error? What was he talking about? He continued. "I identified the faulty patch and recommended an immediate rollback." My chest went cold. Recommended? Recommended to who? "To him," Shane said, and then he said my name. "He refused to implement the fix." The words hit like a gunshot. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. What? My mind struggled to process what I was hearing. "He said he wanted to investigate further," Shane continued smoothly. Despite me explaining the urgency, the bridge was silent, listening, believing. He made the wrong call. Each word was precise, deliberate, deadly. I stared at my screen in disbelief. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't confusion. This was intentional. He was lying. He was taking everything I had just shown him and using it against me. I never refused. I started. The incident manager cut me off. "Is this true?" she demanded. Every eye on the call turned toward me. I could feel it, even without seeing them. Judgment, suspicion, doubt. "I was documenting the rollback request," I said, trying to stay calm. "Following procedure," Shane spoke again. He hesitated. Just 2 words, but they carried weight. Authority. History. Reputation. He had 40 years. I had 10. He was the legend. I was just the new guy. And in that moment, that was all that mattered. The incident manager didn't argue. She didn't question him. She didn't ask for proof. She moved on. Proceed with rollback immediately. The decision was made. The narrative was written. And I was the villain. The rollback was successful. The system stabilized. The crisis ended. But for me, it was just beginning. Within an hour, I was pulled into a private meeting. My manager was there, her manager, and someone from HR. Their faces were serious, measured, controlled. They spoke carefully, used professional language, neutral tone, but the message was clear. I was being formally warned. A verbal warning for negligence during a critical incident, for poor judgment, for risking company stability. I sat there in silence, stunned, humiliated, powerless. I tried to explain, tried to tell them the truth, that Shane hadn't known anything, that I had found the problem, that I had explained everything to him, but it didn't matter, because he had spoken first. And in situations like this, the first version becomes the official version, unless you can prove otherwise, and I couldn't. There were no recordings and no witnesses, just his word against mine, and his word carried more weight. When the meeting ended, I sat alone at my desk, staring at the screen, my hands trembling slightly. 10 years. 10 years of building my career. 10 years of proving myself. And in 10 minutes, he had nearly destroyed it. Not because he was right, but because he was trusted. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't panic. This wasn't confusion. This was strategy. He had waited, watched, prepared. And when the opportunity came, he sacrificed me to save himself. And worse, he was rewarded for it. Later that day, an email was sent to leadership, commending Shane, praising his quick thinking, his leadership under pressure, his experience. He was called instrumental in preventing a catastrophe. I read the email 3 times, each word twisting deeper into me. Instrumental, heroic, reliable, everything he wasn't, everything he had stolen from me. And that's when the anger began. Not sudden, not explosive, but cold, slow, precise, like ice forming around my heart. I wasn't thinking about revenge yet, not exactly, but I was thinking about truth. and how easily truth could be rewritten. All it took was one voice, one lie, one moment. To erase everything, but lies have one weakness: they depend on silence, and I was done being silent. I just didn't know yet. That one recording would change everything. He admitted everything. Because he thought I wasn't recording, the anger didn't explode. It settled, quiet, heavy, patient, like something alive inside me, waiting. For days after the incident, I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I logged in, every time I saw Shane's name in the team chat, every time I saw that email praising him, it replayed in my mind. His voice, calm, confident, lying, destroying me in front of everyone, and getting rewarded for it. I stopped sleeping properly. Conversations with friends felt distant. Even simple tasks required effort. It wasn't just about the warning. It wasn't just about my reputation. It was the betrayal, the calculated nature of it. He hadn't panicked. He hadn't misunderstood. He had watched me find the solution, and then stolen it. And worse, he had blamed the problem on me. One afternoon, about a week later, Mel called me. Her voice was different, tight, serious. "Are you alone?" she asked. My stomach tightened. "Yeah." There was a pause. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "He told me." I leaned forward. "Told you what?" Another pause. "He told me he did it on purpose." The words hung in the air between us, heavy, real. "What exactly did he say?" I asked quietly. Mel exhaled slowly. "He was bragging." "Of course he was," she continued. "He said he needed to remind you of your place." My hands curled into fists. She went on. "He said you were getting too confident, too visible, that people were starting to rely on you instead of him." Each word confirmed what I had already suspected. This wasn't about the incident. This was about control, about ego, about fear. "He said," Mel continued carefully, "that guys like you forget who built the foundation. Guys like you. You're replaceable." Threatening. I didn't say anything, because I didn't trust myself to speak. Mel hesitated. I asked him if he felt bad. That question lingered. Hope, fragile and foolish, flickered briefly in my chest. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe he knew he'd crossed a line. Maybe he laughed. The hope died instantly. "He said it was necessary," she continued softly. "He said if he didn't put you in your place, you'd eventually replace him." Silence filled the line. My heart pounded in my ears. He hadn't just lied. He had justified it, normalized it, owned it. Mel spoke again. "I wish I had recorded it." The words struck something inside me. Recorded it, proof, evidence, truth. But she answered the thought before I could voice it. "He would have never said it if he knew he was being recorded," she added. "Skype shows a notification." Course it did. Everyone knew that. Recording on Skype displayed a visible alert. It protected people, prevented exactly this kind of thing, or at least, it was supposed to. We talked a little longer, but I barely remember what was said, because something had already begun forming in my mind. An idea. Dangerous, simple, effective. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. His lies, his smugness, his laughter, his certainty that he was untouchable. He believed he was safe, because he believed there was no proof. And he was right. Until now. The next morning, I opened my computer, logged in, and stared at Shane's name, online, available, waiting. My heart raced. This was a .no rehearsals. .no guarantees. Just one chance. I opened the chat window. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Hey, can we talk?" 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Typing, then his response, "Sure," followed by a smiley face. A smiley face, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't tried to destroy me. I felt a surge of anger, but forced it down. "Stay calm. Stay controlled." I initiated the call. He answered. "Hey," he said casually, like we were friends, like we were equals. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I clicked the record button immediately. The Skype notification appeared. "This call is being recorded." He saw it. Of course he did. Everyone did. I spoke. I want to talk about the incident. His tone shifted instantly, guarded, professional. What about it? I think you misrepresented what happened. There was a pause. I don't agree with that, he said smoothly. Careful, measured. Lie, even now, showed you the problem, I said. You didn't find it. I disagree, he repeated calmly. Of course he did. He knew he was being recorded. He was protecting himself, playing the role. Let the silence stretch. Then I sighed. Forget it, I said, and click stop. The recording notification disappeared. This call is no longer being recorded. There was a brief silence, and then everything changed. His voice relaxed. The mask slipped. You need to learn something, he said. Not defensive, not cautious, confident, superior. You don't get to walk in here and take over. All spite. This was it. I kept my voice neutral. I wasn't trying to take over anything. Yes, you were, he snapped. The hostility was no longer hidden. You think just because you learned some new software, you're suddenly important. There it was. The truth. Raw, ugly, honest. You needed to be reminded how things work. He continued. Every word was a confession. Every word was evidence. Every word was being captured, because while Skype wasn't recording anymore, OBS was, running silently in the background, capturing everything, and he had no idea. When I told him I had the recording, he started begging he didn't know. That was the strangest part. He had no idea that every word coming out of his mouth was being preserved forever. There was no warning.no notification.no blinking icon. Just the quiet, invisible capture of truth. You needed to be reminded how things work, Shane repeated. His voice had lost all pretense now. This wasn't the careful, professional tone he used in meetings. This was something else. Something honest. Something ugly. I said nothing. Let him continue. You don't walk into a company like this and start acting like you're the expert, he said. You haven't earned that. Earned. The word echoed in my mind. 10 years of experience, thousands of resolved incidents, hundreds of late nights, and none of it mattered to him, because in his mind, time served was the only thing that counted. I never disrespected you, I said quietly. He scoffed. You didn't have to. The oxygen machine hummed faintly through his microphone. You exist, he continued. You learn fast. You make people rely on you. That's how it starts. That's how it starts. Like I was some kind of infection, something to be contained, controlled, neutralize. I was 2 years away from retirement, he said. There it was. The real reason, not anger, misunderstanding, fear. I wasn't going to spend my last years here fighting to stay relevant, he continued. Not for some new system I don't care about. His honesty was almost surreal. You lied, I said. I corrected the situation, he replied coldly. Corrected. He actually believed it. Believed he had the right. Believed he was justified. You blamed me, I said. You were replaceable, he replied instantly. The words hit harder than anything else. Not because they hurt, but because of how easily he said them. Like it was obvious, like it was truth. I gave 40 years to this company, he continued. 40 years, and then suddenly, people start going to you instead of me. There was bitterness there, resentment, desperation. I wasn't going to let that happen. The confession was complete, total, undeniable. He had admitted everything, not just the lie, but the motive, the intent, the strategy, all of it, and he still didn't know. I leaned back in my chair, my heart was racing, but my voice remained calm. You realize, I said slowly, that what you did could have gotten me fired. He didn't hesitate. That was the point. Silence filled the space between us, not awkward, not uncertain, final. He had said it. He had confirmed it, destroyed any illusion of innocence. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was attempted career execution, and he had pulled the trigger without hesitation. I looked at the OBS window. Still recording, still capturing, still preserving. I had everything, more than enough. proof that couldn't be denied, proof that couldn't be explained away, proof that could destroy him. And suddenly, the power dynamic had shifted, completely. He didn't know it yet, but he wasn't the untouchable legend anymore. He was just a man who had made a fatal mistake. I took a breath, then I decided to end it. There's something you should know, I said. He didn't respond. I recorded this. Silence. Pure silence. No oxygen. No breathing. Nothing. Then, what? The word came out fragile, smaller than anything he'd said before. I recorded everything I repeated, and for the first time since I'd known him, he sounded afraid. That's not possible, he said quickly. Denial, instinctive, desperate. Skype recording was off. It wasn't Skype, I said. The silence that followed was suffocating. He understood. Not the details, but the reality. Proof existed, and it was in my hands. You can't, he started, but he didn't finish, because he knew he couldn't stop it. For 40 years. He had controlled the narrative. For 40 years. His word was law. For 40 years. He was the authority. And now, he was exposed. What do you want? He asked. The shift was immediate, total. He wasn't commanding anymore. He was negotiating. I hadn't expected that question, because I hadn't thought that far ahead. I hadn't done this for leverage. I'd done it for truth. I want you to admit what you did, I said. He hesitated. You already have, I added. More silence. Then his voice cracked slightly. You report this. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. We both knew what would happen. Termination. Loss of benefits. Loss of retirement. Loss of everything. You tried to destroy me, I said. I was protecting myself. He replied weakly, not confidently, not proudly, weakly. The legend was gone. This was just a man facing consequences. I'm sorry, he said. The words sounded foreign, forced, late, too late. You weren't sorry when you did it, I replied. He didn't answer, because there was no answer, just truth, and truth is merciless. We ended the call shortly after that. No threats. No shouting, just silence. And when the call ended, I sat there staring at my screen. The recording file was saved, permanent, unchangeable, powerful. I knew what I had to do. I told myself it wasn't revenge. It was justice. I forwarded the recording to my manager, then to HR, then to the incident investigation team, and with one click, his fate was sealed. The investigation began immediately. They interviewed him, reviewed evidence, analyzed everything, and within weeks, Shane was gone, terminated, 40 years erased in a single decision. He tried to negotiate early retirement, tried to preserve his benefits, tried to salvage something, but the company refused. His actions were classified as misconduct, severe misconduct. He lost everything, his job, his retirement package, his medical coverage, everything he had been protecting, everything he had sacrificed me to save. Gone. And at first, I felt victorious. I had won. I had survived. I had proven the truth. But victory has a strange way of changing over time. Because 6 months later, I heard something that made my stomach drop. Something I never expected. Something I still think about to this day. Shane was dead. 6 months later, he was dead. And I was the last person he ever begged. The first time I heard, I thought it was a rumor. Office rumors happen all the time. People exaggerate, misunderstand, misinterpret, but this wasn't one of those times. It was Mel who told me. Her message appeared late in the evening. Just 4 words. Did you hear about Shane? My stomach tightened instantly. Something about the way she phrased it. Past tense. Not, have you talked to Shane? Not, did Shane message you? Just, did you hear about Shane? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. No, what happened? Her typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then finally, the message came through. He passed away. I froze. My brain rejected the sentence. Passed away. Not fired. Not moved on. Not retired. Dead. I read it again and again, like maybe the words would change, like maybe I misunderstood, but they didn't. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. How? Her reply took longer this time. His health got worse after he lost his job. I leaned back slowly in my chair. The room suddenly felt very quiet. Too quiet. Mel continued. He couldn't afford his treatments anymore. The words hit harder than I expected. Not because I didn't know he was sick. I did. But knowing something intellectually and confronting its consequences were two very different things. She sent another message. He had a lot of debt. Another pause. More than anyone knew. I didn't respond, because there was nothing to say. Mel told me that after he was fired, Shane had tried to find another job. He applied to dozens of companies, maybe hundreds, but tech had moved on. The systems he knew were outdated, his skills were obsolete, and the newer technologies, the ones he refused to learn, were now the only ones that mattered. No one hired him, not remotely, not part-time, not even as a consultant. He had spent 40 years becoming irreplaceable, and in the end, he was completely replaceable. Without income, his savings drained quickly, medical bills piled up, debt collectors started calling, his health deteriorated faster, stress accelerated everything. His body couldn't keep up. Mel told me that near the end, he became desperate, and then she said something that made my chest tighten. He asked about you. I stared at the screen. What do you mean? Her reply came quickly. He wanted to know if you'd forgive him. Forgive him? The word felt heavy, foreign, uncomfortable. I didn't know how to respond, because forgiveness hadn't been part of the equation. Not when he lied. Not when he blamed me, not when he tried to destroy my career without hesitation. But now, he was gone, and forgiveness had become impossible, because forgiveness requires two living people. Mel told me he never blamed me directly. Not at the end. Not out loud. But he knew. He knew the recording had been the turning point. The moment everything collapsed. The moment his future vanished. I opened my email, scrolled through old messages, and found them. His messages, sent after our confrontation, sent after he realized what I had, sent after he understood he was no longer in control. I hadn't looked at them in months. I opened the first one. Please don't do this. Simple, direct, desperate. The next one, I'm sorry. Then another, you don't understand what this will do to me. And another, I have medical bills. I have no backup plan. Then the last one, please. Just one word, please. I remembered how I felt when I first read them. Angry, cold, satisfied. He had shown me no mercy. Why should I show him any? At the time, it felt justified, necessary, fair. He had tried to destroy me. I had defended myself. That was the truth. But truth doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes, it just leaves you with consequences. I closed the email, sat back, and stared at the ceiling. I didn't feel guilty. Not exactly. But I didn't feel victorious anymore either. Just empty. Because revenge stories always end at the moment of victory. They never show you what comes after. The silence. The aftermath. The human cost. I still work at the same company. Still log in every morning. Still solve problems. Still attend meetings. Still see new employees join the team. Young. Hungry, eager to prove themselves. And sometimes, I wonder what Shane must have felt. Watching someone younger, faster, replacing him piece by piece. Not because he wasn't valuable, but because time had moved forward. And he hadn't moved with it. I never became like him. Never treated anyone the way he treated me. Never used fear to protect my position. Because I understood something now that I didn't understand then. Fear makes people dangerous. Obsolescence makes people desperate. And desperation makes people do things they can't undo. Sometimes, I think about that recording. That single file, a few megabytes, just data, but inside it, was the moment a 40-year career ended. The moment a man lost everything. The moment I won. And the moment he lost. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened If I had just pressed delete,